Meteor Day. Thank you. Yeah, please take a seat. I'm Alice. I work at Community here at Meteor. I am so happy to see everyone here. This whole day has been incredible. We have 250 people RSVP just for our San Francisco event, which is like twice what we usually get. And around the world, just today, November 6th, we've had meetups in 134 cities, I think is the last count, in 40 countries. And we've had developers joining us in, over 4,000 developers joining us in those cities, which I think is probably literally a world record. Like, we haven't had time to hire the research on that, but none of us, at least, have heard of anything like this happening in an open source community before. So it's very exciting. We've all been glued to our screens all day doing Q&A with these cities, watching the pictures and tweets come in. So thank you for being part of it. I know some of you are probably very new to Meteor, and so to you in particular, I want to extend big welcome. Please talk to your neighbors, ask questions. We're all very friendly here. To give you an idea of the agenda, we're going to start with just a 20 to 30 minute introduction to Meteor by Sashko, who's one of our core developers. And then after that, we'll all have a chance to get our laptops out, install Meteor, deploy something to meteor.com if you haven't yet. And then after that, we're going to do an extended Q&A session with Sashko and with people joining us online from around the world. And then it'll be lightning talks and then just open hangout time to meet each other and play with Meteor. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sashko, who is one of our core developers here at Meteor. He's recently done a lot of work with our phone gap integration, and he also produced the nice 1.0 tutorials that I'm sure many of you have seen. So here's Sashko.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Alice. So right now I'm going to do a little 20-30 minute introduction, mainly geared at people who are new to Meteor, may have seen it a little bit before, but don't really know what it's all about. And I know I see a lot of familiar faces here and people who I know are super experienced, so just bear with me while we get everyone else up to speed. So it's Meteor Day. And so basically what I'm going to talk about is, first I'm going to tell you what Meteor actually is. Then we're going to code a really simple app and talk about what some of the interesting features are that you can accomplish really easily with Meteor. Then we're going to look at some of the example apps and production apps that have been built with Meteor. And lastly, I'm going to tell you what are some learning resources you can use to learn how to use it and learn even more than I've told you in this presentation. So first of all, what is Meteor? Meteor is an open source platform for building web apps in JavaScript. It's not just a front-end framework for rendering views. It's not just a back-end database thing that lets you render HTML on the server. It's like the full stack solution that gives you everything you need to build the next generation of applications. This includes building really rich user interfaces that can take any kind of data and display it in real time. It includes collaborative multi-user applications. A lot of times you have multiple users working on the same data and trying to collaborate, which requires something like a real-time platform. Meteor also lets you build cross-platform applications, like with the new phone gap integration. You can build an app, have it work in your desktop web browser, on an Android phone, on an iOS device, on an iPad, stuff like that. And that's actually I think really cool to have a framework that supports all these things at once. And since, first of all, you have this full stack solution does everything that you need, well, almost everything. And since we've put so much thought into the new developer experience, we think that Meteor lets you build these kinds of apps faster than you've ever been able to build them before. So let's think about what a modern app is. And I think a good example is something like Facebook. So I'm just going to go to my Facebook feed right now, which is pretty bold, I guess. So this is Facebook, right? You guys have probably seen it. But basically, the cool thing about Facebook is that it's not just like an HTML page, right? It's like a really rich application that lets you get at your data in interesting ways, right? Like here you have a chat thing built into your website, right? You have a bunch of buttons, and when you click on them, they don't open a new page with a link, right? They actually do something right away. For example, if I click on this like button here, it's not gonna take half a second to go all the way to the server and then come all the way back. Thanks. See, yeah, there's another example, right? I didn't have to refresh the page. I didn't have to do anything. That chat message just pops up. And I'm sure that Facebook doesn't do anything special to render the chat view. They just use their normal system that they have for the front end, and it just happens to be real time, and like it just works really easily. So our goal is to let you do the same kind of things that Facebook does with their UI without having Facebook's budget. So basically, you can focus on the unique features of your app, how people are interacting with your app, instead of worrying about how to get the right data to the client, how to like re-render the view at the right time, and like all that junk that maybe some people want to think about, like me, because I work here. But probably most people just want to make their users happy. So when the founders started Meteor, what they realized was that the tools that are available out there, or were available 2 years ago, didn't really make sense for people to build this new generation of apps. Like modern apps need to serve the data to the client. They need to actually have like a smart cache on the client so that you can render the view and respond to input like instantly. Modern apps shouldn't make you refresh the page ever to get new data. And there's actually a funny phenomenon where sometimes you still need to put a refresh button just to make people feel good about themselves. But really, like, they should never have to actually click it. And this means we have to switch away from a lot of the old frameworks we've been using that are built around like the HTTP request response kind of situation, right? Where you get an HTTP request, you run a bunch of code, it returns like a page, and then you kill the whole process, and then you start again for the next page. Meteor is built in a very different way that lets you do these features more easily. So Meteor basically gives you all the components you need to build something like that Facebook experience that I was talking about. So let's go into the demo to see how some of Meteor's features enable that. So I'm going to close Facebook. Okay, so here's my terminal. I guess I should make it a little bit larger. So the first thing you would do is you would go to meteor.com and you would click the Meteor install button. And then that would tell you how to install Meteor, but I already have it installed because I'm doing a presentation. So the first thing I'm going to type is Meteor create, which is the thing that you type to make a Meteor app. So let's say Meteor Day. Great. Now as soon as it's figured all of its stuff out, it's created the app. So each app comes with a CSS, HTML, and JavaScript file. So let's open those now so that we can edit them. And the last thing I'm going to do is, so that I don't have to type out a bunch of code, I'm going to copy and paste from the first couple of steps of the tutorial that I wrote. So first, let's copy in some simple HTML code here. So we're going to go to our HTML file. We're going to replace that. Then we're going to go to our JavaScript file. We're going to put in some code. And the tutorial explains what all of this code actually does, but we're just going to do a quick skim over it to see what kinds of features you can build. And then the last thing we're going to do is add some CSS to make our stuff look cool. Great. Okay, now we run our app by typing Meteor inside our app folder. And that's going to tell us to go to localhost 3000. So we're going to go there. Okay, and here is what we have right now. So this is basically, you can see like how we got here from the HTML. It's just a little header with a thing that says to-do list. And then here we have a list which will presumably render a task for each task item that we have in our database. And if we look at our JavaScript, actually here, let me split this up so that we can see both at once. Is that too small actually? I don't know. Here, maybe I can zoom in more. But basically, you can see that in our JavaScript code, we're creating a new Mongo collection. And in Meteor, a collection is a thing that exists both on the client and the server. So first, let's see what it's like to interact with it from the client. So one thing we can do is we can use the task object we've just declared, this Mongo collection, and insert a task. So let's do that. Tasks.insert. If I can, there we go. And then we'll say the text is thing1 or something. Bam. And so as soon as I type task.insert, you can see that I didn't have to do anything special. As soon as I insert the thing on the client, the view updates automatically and shows me my tasks because I've declared this in the HTML. And this is actually something that's like pretty interesting, but you could do this with any front-end framework, right? You can do this with Ember, you can do it with Angular, like you can do all these fancy demos. One thing you can't do with a front-end framework is this, where you open the same app in two different windows, and then now when I type the same thing, you can see that it appears in both windows at the same time. Now, that means like something pretty interesting must be going on. And so what's actually happening is when I type task.insert, it first inserts the task into Meteor's client-side cache that we call minimongo. Then it sends a message to the server to also insert that task into the server-side database. And then the server notices that that task has appeared in the database and sends it to the other clients, all the other clients that are connected that need that data. So one thing we can do is make sure that no crazy like smoke and mirror stuff is going on. So we can actually open a shell into our server-side database. And so, yeah, so we can run the same query on the server into our actual regular database console. So I can say db.tasks.insert. And bam, you can see that if I typed it into the regular MongoDB console that has nothing to do with Meteor except that we opened it through Meteor Mongo, it also appears automatically on all the clients, which means that if you have a different app that also uses MongoDB to store data, you can throw Meteor on top of it and get real-time updates from your existing database. And I think one thing that I want to really emphasize is that here in tasks.find, we're actually running a real MongoDB query on the client. So I can add another thing here. I can say, you know, give me only the tasks with like certain text. And as soon as I save, you'll see that the client refreshes automatically because we have this thing that pushes code. But another thing that you'll see is that this query actually ran and gave us only the task that we asked for. So being able to run actual database queries on the client is something that lets you build a lot like better apps in like a much simpler way where you don't have to plan from 1,000 miles away like what kind of data you're going to need on a page. You can actually just get it when you really need it. Yeah, so that's a really simple demonstration of some of Meteor's features. Oh, actually I forgot a few things. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try out this thing called Meteor Deploy, which is a command that lets us host our app in a place that's on the public internet and where any of our friends can use it. So if I just type Meteor Deploy, Meteor Day like 123 or something, because I've probably already done a bunch of these. So if we just pick a unique name for our app, it's going to upload our app to that name.meteor.com, and then the exact same app that was running just now on our local machine is going to run, you know, in the cloud. So now if I go to this URL as soon as it's done uploading, then we'll be able to see it. And I think this is super awesome because a lot of times when you're working on like your Rails app or something, you hit the point where you're like, oh man, now I have to install like a command line tool for like Heroku or some other hosting platform. But here in Meteor, you get it all built in. So we're going to open this app. We're going to confirm that it works the same way as the app used to work. So if I go here, I go into the console, I type the same insert thing that I typed before. Oh, good call. Yeah, so I added the database query. And actually, one thing I could do here is I can remove this query because I have a bug in my website. I can save that, and I can type Meteor Deploy again. And then what we can see is actually Meteor Deploy has the same hot code push feature that Meteor has on your server. Anybody who's using your website and has it open in a tab, you type Meteor Deploy, and they get the new version immediately. Maybe with some console errors. But I think as soon as this refreshes automatically, we're going to be able to see all of the tasks that just went up there. And I guess maybe some people have added some things in there. Yeah, so as you can see, this is a real app that you can really use across the internet. And there's one more thing that I think is super awesome, which is our new PhoneGap integration. So all I have to do now is I have to type Meteor add platform iOS. And this would tell me how to install all the appropriate SDK stuff that I need to get that to run. And then I just type Meteor run iOS. And now, clear those things. So now it's going to install all the native plugins it needs to run my app. And as soon as those plugins install, it's going to automatically set up an iPhone simulator, and then we can check that that is actually connected to the exact same server as the web app by running another one of these commands. There we go. And so if I insert another thing here, thing 4, bam, it appeared on the web UI and on the phone automatically. So now, like, I don't know, I didn't really build mobile apps before, but now it's so easy, like, you may as well just throw out an extra mobile app because, like, you just run one command, right? So now you really have no excuse to not be mobile because, you know, like, just run that one command and then publish it and then you're done. Okay, great. So those are some of the features that I think are like the most exciting things that Meteor does. And obviously it does all the other things, like it lets you do user accounts and like whatever other thing you want to do. Okay, that's the demo. And now let's talk about some of the components that enable all this stuff. So Meteor has, I think I've identified like 5 main components that enable all this cool stuff. So live query is the thing that lets you do real-time database queries. So on the server, if you do a collection.find on your database, you can observe that query and see when new things get inserted, removed, or changed. Then there's DDP, which watches those things and lets you subscribe to certain subsets of the database so that when the database changes on the server, those changes are automatically pushed to the relevant clients. Then Minimongo is the thing on the client that catches those updates that DDP has sent and stores them in your local JavaScript database in your web browser so that you can do these kinds of like rich database queries on the client. And Tracker is a thing that then takes these updates to the database or any other updates in Meteor functions and lets you basically rerun code when data changes. So it's kind of like a way of doing event listening, but without actually having to declare any event handlers. You just write a function, and then it automatically just calls itself again when it needs to. And then the last piece of the puzzle is Blaze, which takes all these technologies together and renders the actual HTML of your page. So if you put together all these 5 components, you get a full stack thing that from you typing an insert into your database, it goes all the way through all these components, and at the end, you get the view that updates automatically. And I think this is Meteor's probably greatest value add, which is that it has all these components together, packaged into a nice little tool, so you don't have to mix and match a bunch of different components to get the app that you need. And so you can read about more of these components at meteor.com/projects. There's very detailed pages about all of the internal workings of basically every part of the framework. And the whole framework's open source, so if you really want to, you could also go read all the code. So that's really awesome. Great. So Meteor also comes with 2 example apps that our friends at Percolate Studio helped build. They're called To-Dos and Local Market. And To-Dos is a fully featured to-do list app where you have multiple to-do lists, multiple users, private lists, things of that nature. And Local Market is a cool social engagement app for a local store you might have on the corner that might let you post a photo of maybe something you've cooked with food that you bought at the store, connect with other people who shop at that store, learn about what things are available, what are the news. And a lot of stores want to build these kinds of apps right now. A lot of other kinds of businesses want to build these kinds of apps. So we wanted to give an example that was like really relevant to real people that might want to hire a contractor that knows Meteor to build this kind of like cool app. In particular, there's also a couple of production applications that we've decided to highlight on our website. So if you go to the front page and you scroll down, there's a grid that looks like this of 6 buttons. And you can click on those buttons to look at videos that describe real production applications that are currently running on Meteor. So one we can talk about right now is called WorkPop. And this is an application for hourly workers to find jobs near them that they can go work at. And it's very successful. They have a 7.9 million Series A led by Trinity Ventures just recently. And in particular, Trinity Ventures says that this was the most rapid prototyping, iteration, and development that they've ever seen from such an early stage company. And hopefully, I think Meteor had a little bit to do with that. So, you guys are here. We have 173 meetup groups around the world, 130 plus of which are having meetups today. We have over 2,500 community packages. Discover Meteor, which is a community, probably the best community resource for learning Meteor, has made $300,000 in book sales. I guess what we're trying to say is that there's a real community being built up around Meteor, and we think that's really awesome, and hopefully means that it will keep increasing in the future. And so one last thing is just directing you to additional learning resources that you should check out if you want to learn how to use Meteor. These are all listed at meteor.com/learn. So the first thing is the thing I made, so I have to advertise it, obviously. It's the official Meteor tutorial at meteor.com/install. That'll tell you how to install Meteor, then teaches you basically most of the beginning basic concepts you would need to build an app that you can show your friends. And then there's Discover Meteor, the book that I mentioned. There's currently a promotion where today you can get a free copy of the starter edition of the book at this URL. And that's actually like a great deal because like that's what I always recommend to my friends, that they should buy Discover Meteor, but you should get it now for free, which is really awesome. And then, Slava and I, one of the core developers, also Slava, we creep on Stack Overflow a lot, like to answer questions and talk to people, so you guys can post there if you have any questions. And lastly, the full documentation for all the different parts of Meteor that you might want to use is at docs.meteor.com. So you guys should check those out. And now it's your turn. I think Alice is now going to lead you through installing Meteor and creating your first app. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation.